Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cinematic Schematic, the official podcast of Cinematropolis.com. I'm your host, Caleb Masters, and I'm so thrilled to be back at Dead Center again with you for another interview. This is for a project that, when looking at the schedule, really caught my eye. And I was so curious. I wanted to sit down with the filmmaker behind it. So the short film that we're going to be talking about today is called Black Title Here.
Yo, call time is 7 a.m., my dude. It's 6:45. We're gonna be late. Where are you? Hello?
Yo!
Can you be up in time for the cable guy? They said between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m.
I think I found your problem. You're not gonna want to have food by the modem.
Sorry.
Hey, why aren't you on set? What's up?
Exactly. Same reason you don't fuck with them, though.
Whoa, hold on. I'm off today, dog.
So Black Title Here introduces James on his day off from work. And unfortunately, James's being off from work is not the only thing that is off on that day. His current girlfriend, Shalom, and the girl he moved into LA with, Nastali, are both in need of him as he tries to find his way before he loses it all. This is a short film, which you can view virtually on the Dead Center website. Those of you who have a pass, or if you want to go ahead and pay the individual ticket price of $10. This is actually available starting right now until, it looks like 11:45 p.m. on June 21st. So you've got yourself a good week plus to check out this short film, Black Title Here. I am so thrilled to be joined by the writer, director, producer, Sev DeMy. Sev, welcome to the Cinematic Schematic podcast.
Hey, what's up, man? Thank you so much for having me.
Full disclosure, haven't seen the film yet. It just really caught my eye. I was looking at some of the shorts that stood out, and I wanted to get your insight because it definitely gave me some of those Atlanta vibes. I'm a big fan of that show on FX. Mm-hmm. So to break the ice today, can you tell me a little bit more about your inspiration to tell this particular story? Like when you sat down to write the script, maybe, what were maybe some of the primary influences for both the character and the story?
Okay, well, let's see. It evolved. You know, I had made some shorts in the past, and I wanted to try to tell a simple story. And originally, it was just gonna, like the beginning of the film, which kind of opens with James getting these phone calls that wake him up and start his day. That was the original idea, and then it just kind of evolved, and eventually he got out of bed, and I ended up telling a bigger story. But James himself, you know, I guess they say write what you know. I'm definitely not James, but I am a guy that transplanted to Los Angeles and got involved in the business. So he's a production assistant, a PA, that feels a little more qualified than what he's doing. And he's kind of at that point where he's trying to redefine himself. And so that was the inspiration. A little bit of me and a little bit of what I see going on in the city around me.
Production assistant on a film set, that seems like a lot of people, you know, when they move out to LA, kind of like when they start moving up the ladder. Was that did you find like that was a pretty fun angle to kind of get some inside kind of meta, maybe like, I don't want to say like critiquing like the film industry, but more about like kind of poking fun at kind of the ins and outs of working on film sets?
Yeah. I mean, in the film, okay, so in television and film, at least in California, you're supposed to work 6 days. And then if you get your 7th day, it's like overtime. And especially for PAs, usually you can't get that 7th day. It's like a big deal because you get paid more, you know? Mm-hmm. So in the film, that's just kind of like some of the inside talk, because the reason why James is off work is it would be his 7th day. And so him and his friends are just kind of like going back and forth, and he thinks he lost his job because you're like day playing, and you have a lot of like, or let me say like this, a lack of job security as a PA on a film sometimes too. So just kind of knowing that experience and how uneasy you feel sometimes about it all. I drew from that.
Yeah, a little bit of that, like probably instability. Seems like a really, exciting, interesting time of life. And
yeah, for sure.
So tell me, how long have you? And we don't have to get too in the weeds here, but just curious, how long have you been working, film sets in LA?
I've been working in the business now a little over 10 years. Yeah, and I do a lot of television, a lot of reality television. So it's a little different than film, but it's wild.
Right. Film adjacent. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So Speaking on the television angle, this was really plays like a pilot for a larger series. I think you actually even have it listed that way on the Dead Center description, even though it also plays very well as a short film. So how did you go about creating this pilot that works as its own story, but also really sets you up for a long-term series?
You know, in the writing, I guess I would say that I guess one of the main differences anybody would say is I knew I didn't have to make a character that kind of like had a button at the end. I didn't have to like figure out a destination per se, as more just kind of start the journey. So with James and writing this, I kind of wanted to introduce him, but leave a lot of things unbuttoned. So you would kind of wonder and give him room to grow. And then at the same time, because I had made shorts in the past, I tend to make the long short. Like I'm not really like the 5-minute, 6-minute film guy. I do like the 12, 15, 20-minute. And so I just was like, why don't I just go for it and just make like a TV pilot instead of kind of trapping myself in just a short that maybe could turn into a feature, or it's just kind of like the end of the road with the story. So that's kind of how I went into it.
Right. Kind of like making what you know, because you, with the television background, it sounds like you kind of like have workshopped that style. So actually, maybe for listeners out there who might not be as knowledgeable about like maybe the difference between like a short film and this more, I would say like long short film or pilot, like what are some of the limitations you see in some of the short films?
This is no shot to anybody, but sometimes what you see in like the 3-minute film, the 5-minute film, even as long as like an 8-minute film, it's kind of like a punchline. Sometimes we have like the punchline short where you're watching to kind of get the end of the joke, you know, almost like a really long commercial, and they're good. I mean, I've seen some that are excellent. And then you also have the short that really wants to be a feature. So it's almost like they just kind of like shoot a couple scenes from their bigger idea. And it's like a teaser of something that they're trying to sell as well. And then a pilot, obviously, like I said before, you're writing in a sense of kind of like beginning the world and starting the world and knowing that your characters can evolve. And even if they solve problems, there's new ones that have to start again. So you just kind of go in it a little differently.
Mm-hmm. And I am not going to get too much into hypotheticals here because but I'm kind of curious, like when thinking about like television series, are you seeing yourself in more like an episodic, like kind of case of the week style, or is this something you're looking at more being a little more serialized in terms of episode to episode?
No, I would want to do this like a serialized TV show. I could see this hanging out there with people have told me it's like a mix of Insecure and Atlanta. I guess if you kind of wet your palate in that world at all, I would say you would recognize this hanging out there.
Very, very cool. Now, you mentioned those two in particular, and you and I were talking before we hopped on this recording about Atlanta, and I was like, yeah, that's a perfect fit. Were there any other particular influences on Black Title here?
Specific influences? I'm sure there's a ton. Well, I drew from there's dreams in the film. So basically, the film opens up where our main character James is asleep, and he has these two dreams, and people call and wake him up, and that's how his day starts. But the dreams were kind of like drawn from quotes that I had heard, and I really tried to actually just visualize quotes. And so one was from a filmmaker named Arthur Jafa, and then the other one is from a book by like an economist. I can't even remember his name. Something. Anyway, but that was like the challenge. Instead of like taking like the idea of something I've seen already, let me try to visualize something I've read. So yeah.
That's very cool. And one thing I did notice, even not seeing the film and sort of the trailer you put out there's a lot of the text bubbles. And this is actually like a technique that we've seen catch on a lot more in the last 5 or 6 years. So when implementing those, firstly, I think that's a really great technique, really great way to kind of communicate, especially like what people are texting on their phones. Yeah. We're all so plugged in these days. How did you decide when to utilize that and when to shy away from it to kind of actually write it into the visual of the narrative?
Right. It's hard because I wanted to try to make it feel real. And nowadays, this is the life we all live. Few people go before noon without getting 10 text messages from somebody, and so I just was trying to figure out how much can I use it. And I know you have to use it as information. You're trying to like reveal what your character is thinking and knowing at the same time. So I tried to weave it into part of the story. And so the texting is actually like his ex-girlfriend kind of threatening him, saying, "I'm on my way." So I tried to balance it as a way. So you're not just reading, you're actually getting information at the same time.
Right, but like you're utilizing at very specific moments, they're going to get that same sort of reaction when you open a text message, or you get that like a little like the ping in your text, like, oh my gosh, text message.
Yeah, for sure. There's some funny ones in there, the timing of them all, for sure. And then, the toughest part is you write that into your script and you're like, okay, I think it's funny or it's going to work or this or that. But then, once you shoot it, you realize, oh, I don't want to cover up half of my shot with this text message. That's actually, as a filmmaker, like one of the problems that happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like you're imagining it when you're writing the script, but you kind of have to like adjust, when they're in actual production. Like and I'm kind of curious, what does that process look like? Like, I mean, how do you go about? Do you have to like rewrite on the set? Is it something that you do on the like literally on the fly, or is it something that you look at in post? I mean, like what does it look like?
It's definitely a post thing. Like once you get to post, you're like, okay, obviously these are the moments when the text messages are supposed to pop up on the screen and your character's reacting to it. Sometimes you realize you kind of need to hold the frame longer, or you might have to resize something so you can fit the text. And, you kind of realize you're asking people to read and watch at the same time. So your framing and your timing just has to change. And sometimes you don't account for that in the writing process.
Well, of course, this film is now playing at the Dead Center Film Festival. So listeners out there, check out the film. You can find it over on the Dead Center website. Tickets are available now, $10 individually, or if you're a pass holder, you should have unlimited access to this film. So I do highly recommend you check it out. It sounds like a nice little comedy kind of mix up in between feature films. And of course, this runs until June 21st at 11:45 p.m. Central Time. So check that out. Now, for listeners out there, I want to reiterate, too, Dead Center being virtual this year, people can watch from anywhere. That said, Sev, if maybe, say, listeners are catching this later after the film festival is wrapped up, where else can listeners anticipate seeing the film?
It's actually going to be in the Palm Springs Short Fest as well. That's in June. So I don't know the exact dates it'll be running the whole time because it's going to be online as well. Mm-hmm. But if you miss it in Dead Fest, which I hope you do see it in that festival, there are other ways to see it. And, hopefully it'll become a TV show. But if it doesn't, it'll end up online. And, just Google me or Google the title and you'll be able to check it out.
Absolutely. And do you have any social media pages that maybe some of our listeners could follow?
For sure. Please follow me on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. I think those are my main ones. I'm Sev DeMy on every social media site. So SEVDEMY.
Fantastic. Well, Sev, we really appreciate you taking some time out of your day-to-day. Before I go, is there anything else you would like to add for listeners today?
I guess I would just say, black title here, I guess I would just say it's more than it meets the eye. We kind of sometimes we see posters or trailers and we're like, oh, I think I know what that's about or whatever. Beyond the story, I definitely try to make my films visually appealing. So I think if you just want something interesting and layered to kind of like get into, definitely give Black Title here a watch because it's more than you think it is.
All right, very cool. Well, absolutely, highly recommend you check that out. Again, as you, Sev mentioned, available Dead Center. It's available at other film festivals, and you can follow on social media for more information. I want to remind everyone, of course, you can find more of our Dead Center coverage, including the more podcast interviews like we have here with Sev today, and as well as written reviews over at the cinematropolis.com. As part of all of our Dead Center 2020 film festival coverage, you can check that out there. Or you can find us on social media at facebook.com/cinematropolis or on Twitter @Cinematropol. Thanks so much, everyone. We'll catch you again next time.